Hey everyone, it's Kong again, and here's another episode of Should You Summon? As always, I'm going to be presenting high-level overviews using these 4 criteria to help you decide whether this banner is worth your hard-earned vouchers and crystals. How these characters fit into your team, whether they unlock any bonds, what kind of content they get used for, and their future availability. So let's get right into this Destiny banner featuring Lanford, Shelfaniel, and Virash, running from December 3rd to the 16th. As a Destiny banner, of course, the first SSR is guaranteed to be one of these 3 that you don't already have, and then after your first SSR pull, or if you already have all 3 of these characters, then it reverts to a normal raid-up banner. So let's get started with Lanford. His talent is an Omni Command Aura, which at 6 star gives plus 15% to all stats except hit points within 2 spaces, and this is increased to 3 spaces with his unique helmet. His 3-cost skill also passively adds stat debuff immunity for mixed type units within this same area as well. Some people like to run Tree of Life enchants on him just to add even more stats to the aura. His 3C also gives him a big attack that dispels 2 buffs and has a chance to reduce its own cooldown if you kill the target or land a critical hit. He's a member of YELESS Legends, buffed by Landius and Sigma, and Strategic Masters, buffed by Ultimuller and Lanford. His faction buff for Strategic Masters boosts damage by 15% for mixed type units, so that's where your hero type and your troop type are different, for example Leon running Angels. For bonds, he unlocks the attack bond for Wheeler and the defensive bonds for the Knight of Mystery and Rosenseal. That's right, if you're planning on adding the meta-changing Rosenseal to your roster and you don't already have Lanford, then this is a strong incentive to pull him here. For his own bonds, he needs his bannermate Shelfaniel for his defensive bond and Landius for his attack bond. For content, with his aura and his Mixed Forces faction buff, he's a great support character for PvE Strategic Masters teams in general. He's on faction for Phoenix in the Eternal Temple, and he can be used well against Needhog and Sleipnir in Ancient Beckoning, again thanks to that aura helping boost your whole team's damage. He doesn't get too much play in high-level PvP, partly because he lacks reliable one-shot capability and survivability. So for now at least, he's mostly a PvE character. For availability, he doesn't show up again on the predicted banner schedule, which means he won't be headlining another banner until mid-May at the earliest. Now moving on to Shelfaniel. Her talent is like a guaranteed mini clock. Whenever she deals damage with a skill, it reduces the cooldown of that skill by up to 3, depending on your star level of course. This allows her to cycle through powerful AoE skills like Desiccate, Demolish, and Heaven's Sanction with ease. She has a unique helm that has a 30% chance to grant +1 range and +1 span to her skills, and she also has a 3-cost skill coming out in February, which is essentially Heaven's Sanction 2.0. It's a big AoE blast that's effective against demons, it stuns any demons it doesn't kill, it reduces its own cooldown if it hits 3 or more enemies, and it reduces cooldown even further if it kills an enemy. She's a member of YELESS Legends, buffed by Landius and Sigma, and Princess Alliance, buffed by Luna and Shelfaniel. So we have another faction buffer on this banner, and her faction buff for Princess Alliance increases skill damage by 12%. That's it. The damage boost isn't as high as other faction buffs, but the activation requirements are also very generous, so it's a pretty good one. For bonds, she unlocks the attack bonds for Angelina, Oliver, and Serena, and the defensive bond for Lanford. For her own bonds, she gets a freebie on her defensive bond from Almeida, and she needs Angelina for her attack bond. For content, in PvE, she's on faction for Leviar and Phoenix in Eternal Temple, and she's great against Leviar in particular because of her wealth of magical options. She's also on faction for Needhog in Ancient Beckoning, and of course her skills and talent make her quite helpful against the pesky Ice Dragon, against the even peskier Treasure Goblins, and for that matter, in any generalized AoE bomb team, like in Timeless Trials for example. On the PvP side, her versatile skills and faction synergy can make her a solid pick for PvP. You don't see her very often, but when you do, it can make you think carefully about your pick ban if you're running any characters in their demon classes, like Bozel or Zerida or Gizaroff for example. For availability, she doesn't show up again on the predicted banner schedule, which means she won't be headlining another banner until mid-May at the earliest. Last time I said this about Shelfaniel, she turned up on the very next banner in China, so hey, maybe May isn't out of the question. Finally, we have Virash. He's primarily an aquatic unit with a weird talent that lets him live on and continue fighting for a number of turns after dying, depending on his star level. He also has a potentially interesting suplex skill that moves an unguarded opponent behind him after he attacks, so that might be useful for some niche positional cheese. His unique equipment and his 3-cost skill don't do too much to elevate him beyond being a suicidal ball of stats. The armor gives him a random buff whenever he revives, and his 3-cost skill gives him immunity to fixed damage when he engages after reviving. It also gives him a strong physical single-target attack. He's a member of YELESS Legends, buffed by Landius and Sigma, and Meteor Strike, buffed by Zerida. For bonds, he unlocks the defensive bond for Brenda, and the attack bond for Helena. Maybe you recently summoned Helena on her launch banner and you need to get that bond unlocked? That's probably Virash's most compelling use case currently. For his own bonds, he needs Lambda for his defensive bond, and Rainforce for his attack bond. Okay, for content. In PvE, in the Eternal Temple, he could be useful against Scylla because he's an on-faction aquatic unit. His talent might also make him useful against Phoenix in the sense that you can just let him get blown to smithereens and then get a few extra attacks out of him while his extra lives tick down. He's also on-faction for Jormungandr and Nidhogg, but I don't see him making much of a dent in those. Really, I think his main PvE use will be for charging into the midst of enemies to lure them out of formation, maybe suplex them, and then basically just die. For PvP, he doesn't get used a ton in high-level PvP, but when he does show up, he can be kind of annoying. His job is usually to charge in and do huge damage, and then occupy your opponent's attention as they either try to splash him with some damage a few times, or else avoid him while his talent ticks down. Like a lot of the less common characters, you might get some value against mid-tier players who don't really know how he works or how to deal with him. He can also be a pain in the ass in normal arena, since the AI-controlled units will see him as vulnerable and waste all their turns trying to kill him while he keeps reviving. For availability, as with the previous 2 characters on this banner, Virash doesn't show up again on the predicted banner schedule, which means he won't be headlining another banner until mid-May at the earliest. So here's the quick and dirty. We have Lanford, who's a useful stat-boosting totem, especially versus Nidhogg and Sleipnir. He carries a faction buff for Strategic Masters, and he unlocks the attack bond for Wheeler and the defensive bonds for the Knight of Mystery and Rosenseal. Then we have Shelfaniel, who's a magical AoE specialist with built-in cooldown reduction. She carries a faction buff for Princess Alliance, and she unlocks attack bonds for Angelina, Oliver, and Serena, and the defensive bond for Lanford. And finally we have Virash, who's a self-reviving aquatic nuisance, who unlocks the attack bond for Helena and the defensive bond for Brenda. And finally, just the usual note about upcoming banners. Next week's banner should be the return of the classic newbie assisting banner featuring Elwyn, Leon, and Bernhardt. That will be followed by the launch of the Overlord crossover banner featuring Albedo and Shaltir, and then the subsequent Secret Realm event where you can get Ainz for free. I know lots of players have been saving up for Overlord, and the light at the end of the tunnel is definitely in sight, so if you're one of those hoarders and you can feel your vouchers burning a hole in your pocket, hang in there, my friends. Okay, so I hope this video was helpful. Definitely let me know in the comments if you're looking to snipe someone specific on this banner and what kind of luck you ended up having. I have all 3 of these characters already, and no real desire to try to summon specifically to build them up. As much as I'd like to get more use out of my Lanford and Shelfaniel, I'm going to need every voucher I can get. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next Should You Summon.